Asterisk. History does not always announce itself with armies or speeches. Sometimes it arrives as light. And in August of 1945, that light found Tsutomu Yamaguchi, an unremarkable engineer whose life would become a ledger written in ash and silence. Elderly portrait with reflected mushroom cloud. Born into a Japan already starving, already burning, already preparing its people not to survive, but to vanish with honor. Wartime Japan streets, ration lines, radio broadcasts, a man who designed oil tankers for a navy running out of fuel, who believed his future would be measured in blueprints and paydays rather than seconds of survival. Engineer drafting ships. And so when Hiroshima welcomed him in the spring of 1945 as a city still intact, still breathing, still spared, it felt almost merciful against the ruins elsewhere. Peaceful Hiroshima streets, trams, children, and on the morning he was meant to leave forever, delayed only by a forgotten ink stamp, an object so small it insults the scale of what followed. He turned back, losing minutes that would later become the difference between absence and witness. Close-up Hanko stamp. Man turning back. Distant station. And at 8:15 the sky broke open. B. 29 inches. Clear sky. Not bright, but absolute. A white so total it erased direction, shadow, and prayer as the first atomic sun fell, and the air itself ignited blinding Hiroshima flash, and his body moved before thought could die, diving into an irrigation ditch as wind became violence, as steel folded, as concrete liquefied, as skin burned where cloth once rested. Man diving, shockwave bending world, and when the roar passed and silence replaced it, Hiroshima was no longer a city but an aftermath that still walked, where the burned drifted soundlessly through rubble, their skin hanging, their eyes emptied of time, their shadows burned permanently into walls, as proof they had existed at all. Destroyed Hiroshima panorama, Antwalker survivors, burned shadows, and carrying wounds that should have ended him, Yamaguchi boarded a train with hundreds like himself, bandaged, irradiated, already ghosts, fleeing one apocalypse without knowing they were traveling toward another overcrowded survivor train. Scorched countryside, arriving in Nagasaki only to stand days later in an office trying to explain the impossible, laughed at for daring to suggest that a single bomb could erase a city office interior, skeptical faces, until the same white light returned without hesitation or mercy, office flooded with light, and the world proved that it had learned nothing. As a second atomic sun rose behind the hills, and Nagasaki followed Hiroshima into history's grave, Nagasaki mushroom cloud, and survival then revealed itself as its own sentence, as radiation hollowed his blood, stole his hair, blistered his skin, and turned time into a slow execution rather than a gift. Bedridden man, hair falling, bandages, while society, frightened of what it did not understand, treated its witnesses as contamination, forcing silence upon those who carried truth in their bones, isolated man in crowd, until age stripped fear of its power and left only responsibility. And the man who endured two man-made hells finally stood before the world, not as a miracle, not as hope, but as evidence. Elderly man holding certificate, UN Hall, testifying that nuclear weapons do not end wars, but erase cities, fracture generations, and demand survivors not so the story can heal, but so it cannot be denied. Because the end of the world is not a warning or a metaphor. It is a sound humanity has already heard, twice. And it ended not with fire, but with the unbearable quiet that followed two mushroom clouds, fading into silhouettes. Final portrait, never again.